Hey girl, if you're done with dieting and the constant starting and stopping of your healthy habits because, well, life, and you'd rather find a way to train for life instead, then you're in the right place. Hey, I'm Emily, habit and fitness coach and midlife boy mom. I've gone from frustrated dieter to now consistently and confidently living a healthy lifestyle, following the habit hacking systems that I'm now going to teach you. Think of this as atomic habits for women. I'm now helping other midlife moms like you feel and look good in their favorite leggings through all seasons of life, following my habit-based fitness programming. No more dieting, my friend, just training for life. So are you ready to habit hack your health? Then let's do this. You're listening to episode 290 of Habit Hack Your Health. Hey girl, welcome back to the show. You know, I gotta be honest with you. I get a lot of podcast guest pitches in my inbox. A lot of times they're not so great unless they're a referral from another podcaster or colleague or friend in the industry. A lot of times they're just copying and pasting. I'm like, they've never even listened to my show. They don't know. But every once in a while, I'll get a pitch from someone who has done their research, and sometimes it's really funny how it happens. It's a topic I'm really interested in talking about, and God just puts that person in my inbox. And today I really want to chat with you and our expert guest about habits you can implement now to help you prevent and treat cancer. And I was so intrigued with talking to our guest today because my mom and aunt both had breast cancer. It was early stage breast cancer, and they both chose different treatment routes. And my husband's family has had a history of various cancers on both sides of like his mom and dad's side of the family. And I've just seen countless women my age, I'm 43, who I went to like high school with, or they were a sorority sister, posting on social media their cancer diagnosis and the treatment they have to go through. And I've just personally always felt there has to be a better way to treat cancer and getting down to the root cause of what's causing this. And there has to be some proactive measures we can be doing now to hopefully prevent a cancer diagnosis of our own. So let's get into it. I was doing some research into cancer rates, and for sure they are rising. So one study that I found, it said there has been a 79% increase in new cases of cancer among the under 50 age range around the world compared to the past 3 decades. So from 1990 to 2019. That's huge. Now, this can be due to lifestyle factors, right? Like consumption of processed foods, exposure to environmental toxins, and so on and so forth. And then in 2025, breast cancer is the most common cancer in women, accounting for about 30% of all new female cancer diagnoses. And when women under 50 are now 82% more likely to be diagnosed with cancer than men of the same age. Whoa. So now the mortality rate is down, but the treatment plan, and just speaking from my own experience watching my mom go through chemotherapy and radiation, and seriously, the lifelong side effects she has now, it just seems to be so difficult and damaging. And I know we're trying to save people's lives, but just watching my mom and just my interests in functional health and digging deeper down to the root cause and more ways to treat it that aren't so damaging, I was like, there has to be another way. There has to be more we can do. So a question I find myself asking just in general is, are we just putting a Band-Aid on cancer instead of addressing more of our current lifestyle choices, right? When I was saying women are more likely to be diagnosed with cancer than men, I'm like, well, we're probably because we're so stressed out in the lifestyle factors of what we're doing and the overconsumption of processed foods because we're so crazy and the environmental toxins. I can see why, right? Or another question I've had since watching my mom go through the traditional method of cancer treatment is thinking, what alternative methods or aids that we can do to help with the traditional treatment of cancer and not kill you in the process, okay? So now I'm obviously not the expert, and this is by no means medical advice from me, but rather my own opinions and observations as a daughter and someone who likes to dig deeper into health topics like this. But this is why I've brought on an expert, Katrina Foe, who has not only treated women with cancer, but is also a cancer survivor herself, so she gets it, is here to chat with us. So let's talk a little bit more about Katrina. Katrina Foe became a functional practitioner after getting her own breast cancer into remission 100% naturally. She's board certified in holistic nutrition and has been in the health field since she opened her Pilates studio at the age of 24. She also homeschooled her 7 children while writing her international bestseller, Nutritional Pilates. I think you're going to be just as intrigued with this episode as I was because we have all unfortunately been impacted by cancer at some point in our lives. And I want you to leave this episode feeling empowered about what you can do now to try to prevent a cancer diagnosis for yourself, but heaven forbid that happens, right? I want everyone to have some tools ready to go to help you if that does happen for treatment. So, for sure, get a pen and paper handy and stick around to the end for my 3 takeaways. All right, let's go talk with Katrina Foe. Okay, friends, welcome back to Habit Hack Your Health. I'm very excited and just intrigued with our guest today, and I know you all will be as well. We're talking about keys to helping you prevent cancer. If maybe you are going through cancer, some habits to help you as you are navigating this, because I know this is probably a subject matter close to everyone's hearts, unfortunately. But I have Katrina Foe on the show here today. Katrina, thank you for coming on the show.
Absolutely, Emily. It's my pleasure.
I'm really excited to dig in deeper with this topic with you. But first, the first question I ask every guest is, what is your favorite habit hack just saving your life right now?
Okay, so I have one that you probably haven't heard before. So my favorite habit is to do coffee enemas. So I started them when I had cancer for detox. I was dealing with a lot of mold and things. And what I found was they also stimulate the vagal nerve and help put you in parasympathetic. Now, I tend to be the go, 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 amped up, sympathetic stuck person. And so, I mean, this was my zen. This is a really huge thing. And especially when dealing with, I've got a father that will be soon passing away and such. It's just to get that calm in the morning, to set and that foundation for the morning is just priceless for me.
I haven't heard that as a favorite habit, but I'm
Right?
very intrigued. I was actually just reading an article the other day on coffee enemas, so it's so funny you bring that up. So I am here for it. That's so fun. I love it.
Yeah, I was talking with Dr. Navis Habib, who's like a vagal nerve expert, and I'm like, I love your new tool, but I found that coffee enemas are really good for that. And he's like, oh yeah, they're the best, but nobody will do them. Like, oh, my people do them. Like, and I find as a clinician, once people try them, if they can open up and get over the weird factor,
Yeah.
they come back and they're like, Katrina, is it weird that I like it? I'm like, no, it's not weird. It's putting you in that parasympathetic state. And,
Mm,
for those of us that have a hard time getting in there naturally, it feels really amazing.
yeah. It's not only cleaning out all the junk physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually, all the above.
Yeah, exactly. It's multitasking, which as a mom, anything I can do to multitask and health hack in lots of ways is just brilliant to me.
I think that's so cool. So interesting. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, Katrina, the cliff notes, if you will. This is kind of a loaded question sometimes for some folks. Like, what's your story? What has really led to what you do today, what you're so passionate about, and who you're helping?
Absolutely. Yeah. So for me, I was nursing my son and I had a mastitis and I dealt with it, didn't think much of it. And when it was resolved, I realized that the golf ball size lump was still there.
Mm.
And I was 37. I was young. It wasn't something that was really on my mind. And through, the testing and such, I realized that it was cancer, which again, it was so far off my radar. I was healthy. I felt fine. it was crazy. So I went on this crazy journey. I had already had some food as medicine experiences that were really profound. And so I knew I wanted to do things natural. And I went to Mexico. I got kicked out of a cancer clinic there because I asked too many questions and they did not have answers for my questions. And I think it kind of annoyed them that I kept asking questions. Um, and so after 3 days, I was asked to leave. I got pregnant during the process and I found functional medicine and the whole concept of testing what can drive cancer just blew my mind. And it was so profound for me that this actually works. Within a year, my lump was gone. And, I felt like this needed to be out there. And first off, I needed to understand what just happened. I was so excited and startled and just voraciously wanting to learn more. So I went back to school um, and got trained as a functional nutritionist and specializing in integrative oncology and working with women that are, full or moms that are young that have, mostly breast cancer, but not all breast cancer.
Mhm. How do you help these women? Like when someone comes to you, how do you help them, Katrina?
Yeah, so my program has all the comprehensive testing to see everything that is in research. This isn't Katrina's opinions, that things that drive cancer, known carcinogens, things associated with cancer. And, there's 10 major areas we're looking at, but there's usually 7 or 8 things that are majorly off.
Mm.
And they are not necessarily things that make you feel bad. What I was experiencing of this came out of nowhere. I'm healthy. I'm the one doing all the stuff in my friend group already. How did this happen? This is what I hear all the time from my clients. So with the testing, we can actually see, oh, these are your things. And that seeing it tangibly and having something to work on is so powerful. Women, I don't know, men might feel this way too, but I'm a woman. So what I see is, having that a little bit of control to do something is super helpful.
Gosh, that is empowering when you're
Mhm.
diagnosed with something and you're just so overwhelmed and you're taking orders from everyone else telling you what to do and being able to take back that control. That's just so empowering. I love that you're able to do that with the women
Yeah.
that you work with. Well, like I mentioned, this is probably a subject matter that's close to everyone's hearts. Either our dear listeners have either been impacted by cancer themselves, a family member, a loved one. So I think what I really want to chat about today as we get started, Katrina, is some habits we can start implementing now to help prevent cancer. So let's just start with that. Like, what is the most overlooked root causes of cancer? I know you said you look at 10 areas, but what are some of the most overlooked areas?
Yeah. So I mean, I think diet is one of the most. And it's not that it's overlooked, it's just really confusing. There's so much bad advice out there that, we grew up with, in terms of let's eat seed oils and, carbs are the main part of your diet and things where, cleaning up the toxins in our food. And like I said, the seed oils would be the first thing. And they're so ubiquitous, they're in everything. The biggest ones I find the most offensive that people aren't looking at is salad dressing and mayonnaise. And what would you eat, Emily, if you were going out to lunch and you wanted to eat something healthy, in quotes?
A salad.
Right, right. And I mean, yes, the lettuce is great, the vegetables are great, but the dressing is super toxic and inflammatory. So, most people aren't going to bring their own salad dressing. So I usually don't recommend the salads if it's going to have the canola oil salad dressing on it. And this is usually a little shocking to people. So it's not that I want to throw the vegetables out. I want to throw the canola oil out.
Mhm. Go ahead.
So
Other area.
also, yeah, right. The carbohydrate load that we as Americans are eating and consuming every day is a little out of control for most people's genetics. So, this is where, I say test, don't guess, because when you're talking about blood sugar, we hear a lot about low blood sugar. So that hypoglycemia, the shaky, hangry, I can't, go too long between meals stuff. That's, well documented. People know the symptoms. And it's jokes. I mean, there's t-shirts about this stuff. But people aren't talking about high blood sugar. And that is what really drives rather the all the chronic disease, cancer being one of them. But Alzheimer's is type 2, or I'm sorry, type 3 diabetes, it's being called now. Heart disease, all of this is from the blood sugar issues. So the big problem, and I'm the first one to say this was an issue for me. I was insulin resistant, had no idea. And I wasn't eating cookies and, breads or anything at the time. 2 years prior, we were on GAPS. So the only actual carbs I was eating was like squash and honey and fruit and some beans. These are what I have my clients, they come in and they're like very virtuous about them. And some of your listeners may be getting defensive just hearing this, but you can actually continue and maintain insulin resistance with this because it doesn't feel bad. And
Mm.
I can't hammer that home enough. High blood sugar feels really good. You've got fuel running around and you're just like ready to go.
Yeah.
Um, and it can mask a lot of other issues going on and compensate really well for it.
Mm. I love that you said test, don't guess. We talk a lot about looking at the data, not the drama or the facts versus the feelings when it comes to
Yay.
our health, right? When we talk about like weight loss or talking about, how much, how many days this week did you work out, tracking it versus just being like, oh, I only worked out like 2 days this week or whatnot. That way it gives you the actual data to kind of back up. Because, like you said, sometimes talking about diet or lifestyle habits, sometimes people they get their defenses up and they think, like you said, they're running on high insulin. They're like, well, I'm so busy, I'm running to thing, and this is fueling me. But it's actually fueling some things maybe in your body that's not so great for you short term or even long term, right?
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, by testing, just to give you to follow up on that, there's a lot of different things you can do. I mean, a basic metabolic panel that a doctor would run is going to have a glucose, and it should be done fasted. That's going to give you an okay amount of test, a little bit of insight, but for most people, that's not going to show much. What you really want to get is like a hemoglobin A1C, which is a simple blood marker your doctor can run. And it's going to give you the average of the last 3 months of, what your blood sugar is doing in terms of spikes and such.
Mm.
And this is a really great way to just zoom in on, okay, is this an issue for me? Because that's an easy marker and you don't have to be fasted for that one.
Yeah. And a lot of times, do you suggest you need to probably go seek out like a functional medicine practitioner, doctor, nurse, whatnot, to get some of the labs you're looking for versus your regular physician?
Oh, absolutely. Now, a regular physician may throw that hemoglobin A1C on there for you if you need it. But yeah, a functional practitioner is going to look at. Now, the really tricky thing, and sometimes this surprises people, is that when you're looking at blood chemistry, it's not what you think. So the way that they tell you what the lab ranges are on the labs, they take the average of all the people in your area that are taking the test at that lab, and then you get two standard deviations. Who takes the labs?
Hmm.
It's not the healthy people. This
Mm-hmm.
is not telling you objective data on where you should be to be healthy. Hear that. And this is for most all of the blood markers. Looking at the lab ranges is completely irrelevant. Now, just to give you some more perspective, I thought this was interesting. So I work with my clients they're all remote to me. So they might be in Nashville or LA, they're all over. Now, the person in Nashville is going to have different lab ranges than the person in LA,
Interesting.
because there's different people that live in Nashville than LA. No, it's because they have a different set of people taking the test.
Sure.
So human beings function at a certain level and need certain ranges. And that's the same for Nashville than LA. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's super interesting. I wouldn't even think about that. You would just think like there's a standardized
It's
range.
not. It's
Yeah.
not. And that's what surprised me. And because I work with clients remotely, I see this. I
Yeah.
don't think necessarily everyone sees that. It's not something being
Yeah.
talked about, but I think it really drives home the point that we need the functional ranges of where humans actually function well.
Yeah.
So like for hemoglobin A1C, I want it below 5.4. I'd actually prefer it to be under 5, which you don't see that coming in very often.
Yeah. It's more like you said, those functional or more optimal ranges versus like, yep, you're in the range, but maybe it's not optimal for your body or what's
Right.
happening.
Well, and how many of your clients, especially with thyroid issues, this is a big, big deal because those functional ranges, like for TSH, that's usually the only marker they run.
Mm.
Women come in and they're having some hair loss.
Yeah.
They've Googled this, they have cold
Yeah.
extremities, their weight doesn't go down, and they're like, I think I might be hypothyroid. Can you run a test? Well, they'll run the TSH, and the lab range is usually something like 1 to 5. Like it's kind of big. And it comes back and they're at say 3, and their doctor's like, oh, you're fine.
Mm.
Okay, just to give you perspective, my functional range is between 1 and 2.
Mm. Yeah.
So you can see where a lot of women would slip through the cracks of not being well but being told they're well.
Yeah. Well, I
And
think that goes back to advocating for yourself and seeking out the type of help like from someone like you. Like my husband, we just switched physicians. My husband and my boys did. I see a functional doctor, but he's an endurance athlete and he was just curious. He's in between training phases right now. He's like, well, I'm just curious. I'd like to get my testosterone levels tested because, I wonder if they drop a lot while I'm in training mode and if they level back out and they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't do it because they were like, that's an added test. You would have to pay like probably $500 for it or something. And it was just the most ridiculous thing. He's going
yeah,
to see my functional doctor. It was just out of curiosity, but I just found that so interesting. But like all these
yeah.
other labs, they're like, you really
Well,
couldn't.
and Emily, there's this whole game behind the scenes with the insurance companies, and they get to decide what you
Yeah.
get or don't get. So you
Mhm.
don't really have medical freedom. And let's just be honest, uh, a testosterone marker on the blood is not expensive.
Yeah.
It's really cheap. And honestly, just to be direct, that's not what I would look at anyways. You want to see all the metabolites or how the testosterone's breaking down and see, is it, all these different aspects of the dominance of different parts and components. And, for estrogens for women, this is the really interesting part. So with cancer, we talk about high estrogen driving cancer.
Yes.
It's really not just the high estrogen. What we're seeing is that it's really about how the body is clearing the estrogen. So we want to look at the metabolites and see if the 4-OH pathway is high. And there are specific things we can do about that to shift it to a less carcinogenic driving, genetic issue pathway or not.
Mhm.
But if they're running the blood, you don't see any of that. You have to run dried urine.
That's so interesting. Speaking of that, I know I'm kind of going off topic here, but I think this is just so interesting because I know
Uh-huh.
a lot of women are seeking out functional medicine doctors. And like I see someone and I'm 42. No, wait, I'm 43. I keep forgetting how old I am.
I love that.
And, I found out I'm estrogen dominant and I'm just really interested in like my levels. So when I do go into like full perimenopause or menopause, it's not such a drastic drop for me where I'm just like full blown mood swings, hot flashes, where perimenopause and menopause, like we talked about, I can take a little more control now proactively and not feel so,
Mhm.
like suffer through it. But I know a lot of folks are really scared to like mess with their estrogen or not, or take any hormone replacement therapy because of cancer risks. Can you speak on that topic a little bit? I'm sure that's something you get asked sometimes.
Oh yeah, that's like a huge can of worms. I love it, Emily. So first off, I would never, ever, ever touch hormones in any way without a good Dutch test.
Mm,
Seeing all the stuff I was just talking about.
mhm.
Hormones are really important. And if you start messing with hormones, it's a big deal and it can affect a lot of other systems. So just to back up a little bit, so the way our body works, um, we have like a negative feedback loop. So it's kind of like our hormones have like an air conditioning unit, and it senses up in our brain what is going on. How many hormones do we have? Are there too many or too few? And then it tells those different organs to give more or less. And it kind of feeds and checks all of that, you know. So if you have like hot air blowing on the sensor for your air conditioning sensor, are you going to get appropriate, cooling and heating mechanisms?
Mm, no.
And that's kind of what happens when you start giving exogenous hormones, whether they're bioidentical or synthetic, it doesn't matter. It's messing with this system. And so for me, especially since I deal with mostly, younger women that are still they're still cycling or they're going towards menopause. I'm in that perimenopause range myself now. So this is very, very on my heart. But, watching and then supporting it naturally with appropriate foods and herbs is very, very effective. And, I've been able to do it myself. I've been able to do it with my clients. And you don't have to have hot flashes. You don't have to have this craziness. Now, I'm not all the way through it yet, but um, it's fun to see like the smidge of an inkling of a symptom. And I'm like, oh, okay, but I'm mitigating it because I'm watching all these things. And that's where I think the power is. Now, what you didn't ask, but I think you were alluding to, is that there's a lot of other factors besides the hormones.
Mm,
So when you're talking about women's health, especially in terms of breast cancer, you also want to look at, the gut. There's if the gut is messed up, to be generic, it can actually produce, when there's too much bad bacteria, an enzyme called beta glucuronidase. And that enzyme, your gut is producing it. It will put the estrogens that your body has marked for elimination back in circulation.
mhm,
So it kind of is working against you, and you need to know this.
mhm.
Um, Toxins. Oh my goodness, there are so many endocrine disruptors. There are so many hormone blockers like mold that are complete issues and really big deals where, those endocrine disruptors can attach to the hormone receptor sites and block and, mess them up. Not only in terms of symptoms, but in terms of messing with and driving cancer. This is a big deal.
Mm.
And the cool part is, I mean, I'm going to go out on a limb and say probably you and or your clients and listeners have done some of the work already to get these out of your life. I don't think that I'm talking, into a space, an echo chamber or something where you've already like maybe stopped using some plastics. Maybe you got some phthalates and stuff out of your cosmetics and cleaned some of those things up. So have all my clients
Mhm.
that come to me with cancer. And the magic bullet, if you will, is to know which are the toxins that are issues for you.
Mm.
And the cool thing is that we can test this. And this, for me, gives me a ton of freedom as a woman to know these are the areas that I have toxins coming in that my body's having trouble with. I can focus on getting those out of my life, and I don't have to live in perfection. I
Right.
don't have to get everything. Now,
Mhm.
granted, I don't want to go out there and just like bring in tons of toxins, but there's a perfectionist aspect that we women tend to have of like, let's live in a bubble and get everything perfect.
And do it
Um,
all.
yeah, and especially when you have cancer, you feel like if you don't do that, you're going to die.
Yeah.
And this is the big deal. So being able to have some mental space and clarity around this, um, and then the actual yeah, estrogens are a big deal. So I would not probably go to giving someone hormones when they have cancer.
Mhm.
Um, but if they're committed to testing and have done the work, possibly afterwards, I just see that there's so many other ways of supporting the hormones without having to do the exogenous hormones.
Yeah. You mentioned diet, eliminating other toxins from your life, from like your cosmetics, the products you use in your home, plastics. What are some other simple things we could do in our daily lives to help prevent cancer?
I think that's enormous. I mean, that right there, what you just said,
Mhm.
like that's mic drop, like that's a full-time job, small fortune to do.
Right.
And that's where I want to make sure that people hear me that, it's really cool on blogs and podcasts for us to talk about oh, there's this new one and we can sensationalize them. But what ends up happening is that women get overburdened with the full-time job of trying to get the toxins out, which can be impossible. Like it's literally not possible. So, do the best you can. If you can get testing, that's amazing because it will help direct you. Um, but that's the big one. The the one no one's talking about is the mold.
Okay.
Um, and I have words for mold that I will not say on the show. But I mean, there's a reason there's the whole chapter in the Bible about avoiding mold because it's a serious issue. And when we do testing, I test all of my clients. I'm only working with cancer clients. Um, and I've only had two people at this point that have not had mold. Toxic, crazy levels of mold is an issue.
Whoa.
Like that's a big deal. And if you step back and think about it, it's like these are known carcinogens. It's in the research. And when someone gets cancer, what happens? They go to their oncologist, they get chemo, radiation, surgery, whatever. And then they stay in their house and they just hope that it doesn't come back.
Mm,
Go and test them for these known carcinogens. And if it's mold, they're going to continue to breathe it in and be exposed to it. And why wouldn't it come back?
right. So the mold issue mostly comes from people's homes then?
Yeah, predominantly. When you're getting to, I mean, there is mold in foods and stuff like
Sure.
that, but when you're talking about the toxic levels that I'm talking about in terms of like creating cancer, and there's like, I looked at one yesterday, she has eight different types of mold, and they're all carcinogens, and they are like super, super elevated. Um,
Crazy.
this is a big deal.
Yeah. So go get your home checked, ladies. Is what
Well, I would check your body, check
check your
yourself first,
body. Yeah,
because
first.
the home thing is a big expense. If it's not an issue for you, let's save that expense.
Yeah. Gotcha. Gotcha. Cart before the horse there. Okay.
No, I mean that's the natural thought.
Yeah.
But again,
Yeah.
if it is in you and you do get your home checked, not only are you helping you, obviously, but you're helping everyone else that lives in that home, which
Yes.
probably there's some children, a husband, other people, dogs even, it's important.
Now, heaven forbid one of our listeners gets diagnosed with cancer. What would
Mhm.
be first steps for you working with someone like you? Obviously, getting tested, finding out what those toxins are doing to your body personally, but then what else?
Yeah, so right off the bat, I start all my clients with testing, and we're not messing around. We're not doing one test, see how things go, do another test 3 months later. No, we're going to get all the smoking guns on the table up front, because that way you can prioritize and strategize how to address the things that are showing up for you specifically. So while we're getting those tests back, I'm going to help them get into therapeutic ketosis. So we're going to start with nutritional ketosis. We're going to go in gradually because, especially when you're talking about cancer and all these other things, we don't want them to have the keto flu. We don't want them to feel nauseous because they can't digest their fats. We want to make sure they get their electrolytes and their fat digested and really get into ketosis. So then we'll get their levels up with exogenous, meaning coming from the outside ketones, so things you drink, and some fasting, intermittent fasting. And then again, if they're not hypoglycemic, going into some extended fasting. So once they have all their labs back, addressing what shows up on the lab. So, like you mentioned, it could be let's go get the home remediation. Let's take this supplement. Let's do this protocol. Just what shows up. And the really exciting part, Emily, that I love is that all of this stuff is completely different and separate than standard of care.
Mhm.
So our standard of care, and this may sound obvious, but their whole focus is make the tumor go away. Okay, and so yeah, that's kind of what we want, but it's not addressing why was the tumor there.
Mhm.
And if you just make the tumor go away, it's just going to come right back because those same reasons it came there in the first place, like I mentioned with the mold, are still issues.
Mm.
So this can be done concurrently and will actually make the standard of care more effective. So getting into ketosis makes chemo more effective and it helps stave off and prevent cachexia, which is what people actually die of, the emaciating, wasting
Yeah.
away. Why the oncologist, oh, eat everything you can, just make sure you eat. Well, no, don't. I mean, if you fast and get in ketosis, you'll actually have a better chance of not going cachexic.
Gosh. I think that's so important to note because I feel like, sometimes the alternative cancer programs and protocols just aren't taken seriously. And there's a lot of conflicting health advice out there. And so you're not saying, like, hey, don't go to your oncologist if they recommend chemo or radiation, if that's the right route for you. Okay, but here's what I can do to help support you and make that more effective. So why do you feel like there's so much conflicting information? Because I'm on the route. My husband has a family history of cancer, and he's like, if I ever get diagnosed, he's like, I'm going to go into like a fast. I'm going to get high doses of vitamin C. I'm going to go get all my labs checked before I would even think about chemo or radiation. So why do you feel like there's so much conflicting information? Is it just a matter of not enough education on other routes versus traditional medicine?
Oh, there's so much there. I think part of it is that it's not a level, even playing field in terms of insurance is paying for standard of
Yeah.
care
Mhm.
and they don't pay for functional medicine. So just that makes the playing field very and the people that are really into health, I see this all the time. They're really into health, they're really into preventative medicine, but they get a cancer diagnosis and, oh, well, this is paid for. Why wouldn't I do this?
Mm.
And okay, it's your choice. And that's where I support my clients, it's their body, they get to choose
Sure.
whatever part or of things they want in terms of standard of care. Now you mentioned something really interesting. So you mentioned the IV vitamin C, and this I think is a really great example. Most people have heard that IV vitamin C is really great for cancer. It's an oxidative therapy, um, and it's expensive. It takes a lot of time. And there's markers that you can look at to see if it's appropriate. And
Mm.
most IV clinics are not running them. So here's the thing, if depending on which root cause driver, so of those 10 areas, which ones are the issues for you, and there's gonna be like 7 or 8, you can see very clearly, oh, they're all pointing to IV vitamin C would do great, or well, maybe it'll do something, but it's not like really strong. Like you can see that when we do the testing. And you can also see what metabolic state you're in. And if you're in what's called a dysaerobic state, IV vitamin C or any other oxidative therapy will actually drive cancer.
Interesting.
It
Okay.
is not a one size fits all. And that's where I think a lot of alternative stuff gets a bad rap because people aren't discerning when they're using it. They're not doing the testing. And, when they're in a dysaerobic state, a lot of times it's more advanced. Um, and that's when people are throwing the wet spaghetti at the wall in terms of alternative treatments. They're just trying everything. And this will make them go downhill faster.
Mhm.
So it's not that it's bad, it's that it's not being used judiciously.
Gosh, that's where, full circle, like going back, looking at your labs, those 10 factors, because every person is different. Every cancer
Yes.
diagnosis is completely different. Your lifestyle factors and your body. And it's almost like a little experiment where you're able to figure out, okay, well, what's going on with Emily versus Katrina, and how can we come up
Yes.
with a treatment plan for her that's going to help support her through this diagnosis?
Yeah, it's a very systematic process, and there's things we can look at and get very clear insight. This will be helpful, this will not, this needs to be supported. And it's just a matter of, not everyone is trained in this, but
Mm.
there's a lot of choices out there. And I know from when I was cancering, I was doing an alternative, and there's like a million things,
Oh my.
like so many things that can be helpful. And we all want that magic bullet.
Mhm.
There is no magic bullet because cancer is multifactorial.
Mm.
So if it has lots of different causes, that kind of create this perfect storm to overwhelm your immune system, one magic bullet is not going to help for everybody. And I think as Americans, the quicker we can get that out of our head, and I think a lot of this come from the pharmaceutical, like the way they've taught us to look at things. Oh, you've got this XYZ diagnosis, then you need this pill. And everybody that has that takes this pill and it's one size fits all. That's not how the body works.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about natural things, it will not work like that, you know? Even if you hear people that are saying, oh, this is what I did and it cured it, they did other things behind the scenes, whether it's dealing with emotional trauma, changing some diet, reducing their stress, they did other things.
Sure.
And again, I'm not willing to put all my eggs in one basket, even if I want a magic bullet. If we really get down to it, before I found functional medicine, I was trying this and that and this and that and a million different things. And I was still like, is that going to be enough?
Yeah.
Is that going to be the answer for me? And it wasn't until I could have, like you said, the concrete labs to see this is what my body is asking for and it wants and needs help with, that I could let go of some of those other things and not be running the hamster wheel in my mind of, am I going to die? Is this
Yeah.
enough? Yeah.
Well, it's high emotions, right? Because you're like,
Oh, yeah.
okay, there's so many people like they're coming out with a reel, like, oh, you should do this or you should do that. Like a doctor told my husband, like, oh, if you ever get cancer, I would do high dose vitamin C. Or you're Googling this, you're Googling that. And when you have a diagnosis, it's scary, especially as a mom and you have children. You're like, I will do everything in my power to stay alive and I'll try everything. But like you said, what could work for someone else could not work for you. So
Yeah.
instead of overwhelming yourself and just trying to, like you said, throw spaghetti at the wall, work with someone like you, get the facts and the data. You said
Mhm.
test, don't, what'd you say? Test, don't
Just don't guess.
get.
Well, and I just, maybe this is interesting. So I just had a new client that I talked to about a week ago, and she was telling me, and this just horrifies me, but I think it kind of encapsulates kind of what the problem is.
Sure.
Her oncologist, and this is not everyone's oncologist, but he was not very happy that she decided she wanted to do things alternatively. Okay, now he did not ask what she was doing alternatively or any of these kinds of questions. He just looked at her in the face and said, if you don't do this standard of care and you do alternative, you will die in 3 months. I mean, so let's unpack this. How in the world did he know she was going to die in 3 months? He just made that up. And I think I just want to like,
That makes me emotional that
it
someone
made
could
me so
go,
angry. Like,
oh,
okay, maybe with his medical insight, he could
sure.
say something like, this is very serious. You really need to do this.
Mhm.
But to say a specific time frame that if she didn't do it his way, she would die, like that's called bullying in my book.
For sure.
And he pulled that number out of his butt. That
Mhm.
is not based on anything because there is no research on anything like that would even come close to giving him that number. And
Mhm.
I feel like a lot of us tend to look at doctors as if they know everything and everything they say is fact. And it's not.
Mhm.
This is an art. Oncology is an art, and we have some great tools, alternative and standard care, but it's hard to tell these things. And when people are dying, they want concrete numbers, and there aren't those numbers, whether it's in their favor or not. So
Mhm.
I feel like it would be really helpful if there wasn't all the bullying.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I could talk to you forever, Katrina. I just think this is just so interesting and such an important conversation. And kind of like we said earlier, this is a way for women, whether they've been diagnosed in the past or they're supporting someone going through a cancer, or like I said, heaven forbid they get a cancer diagnosis, where they can feel a little bit more empowered and in control to figure out what type of care they need to help them be well and stay alive and advocate for themselves as well. So I just love what you're doing. I think it's super duper important. Like I mentioned to you before we hit record, my mom had early stage breast cancer, and just watching her go through chemo and radiation and just the after effects of it,
So hard.
it was really hard. Like, you know, it's your body's not the same. There's been long-term effects from it and self-confidence as you're going through something like that. And after you're just not the same. So if there's other ways to help support someone, then I would definitely highly recommend everyone go connect with you. And speaking of that, where can everyone connect with you and find out more, Katrina?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll give you a link that they can get my ebook
Lovely.
on how to actually address some of these things and the testing and everything in the 10 areas that we had kind of alluded to. My website is cancerfreedom.com, and that's where you can apply and find out more about it. And then Instagram is Katrina Foe.
Super. We'll make sure to link all of that, including your ebook, in the show notes so everyone can connect with that there. But Katrina, thank you so much for coming on. It was a joy talking with you.
Oh, thank you, Emily. It's always great to talk to like-minded individuals.
For sure.
This conversation was just so intriguing, right? I love talking to really smart people like Katrina because doing your research on your own, just speaking from experience, can really send you down a rabbit hole or a lot of expensive treatments that may or may not be the right fit for you. And I pray you never have a cancer diagnosis, but I also think today's episode is one to save and keep in the back of your mind so that you can be empowered in your own health journey. So let's talk about my 3 biggest takeaways with our conversation with Katrina Foe. Number 1, test, don't guess. I love that so much. Test, don't guess. You have to get down to the root cause of what could be possibly causing a cancer diagnosis. You know, she mentioned 10 things. She has a free download for you as well in the show notes, but testing to find the root cause and removing it from your life. You know, she mentioned mold is a big one. Getting tested and see if that's one of the factors that could have caused a cancer diagnosis in you. Treating your body accordingly, but getting it out of your home as well. That way it doesn't come back, right? What are the toxins for you? And I think what's really important is there's no one size fits all as what caused your cancer, what caused her cancer, and what treatment you had and what treatment she had. It's different for everyone. So you have to test and get the facts and make a treatment plan and a lifelong plan to eliminate those toxins so it doesn't happen again, right? The focus of standardized care, like Katrina said, is just to make the tumor go away. Yes, we want that, but we don't want it to go back. And why was it there in the first place? So test, don't guess. Next, look at the habits that could contribute to a cancer diagnosis and habits that could help after a diagnosis, right? She mentioned diet is very overlooked as a cause of cancer because of all the seed oils. Like she said, like eliminate the salad dressing, ladies, or a heavy sugar diet, carb heavy. Clean up the toxins in your food. High blood sugar, which she said can drive various chronic diseases, can lead to insulin resistance. And like she mentioned, you might not even realize you have this because it feels good. You're zooming around all the time, but it could be masking other issues, right? As far as like hormone supplements, hormone replacement therapy, go get tested for that and work with a professional. Just don't go do it yourself. And what about your gut? Your gut can impact your hormones as well. Now, what about if you find yourself diagnosed with cancer? I love how she mentioned the habit of fasting. That is something I have read up on a little bit. Like I said, I'm not the expert. I am just like the Dr. Google over here looking up things. But fasting and getting into ketosis can really help you when you're going through your treatment for cancer, right? I'm not saying don't get chemotherapy, don't get radiation. Do what's best for you. But to be able to employ something like that can make the process not as painful. And lastly, work with a functional expert so you don't counteract what you're doing, right? Like I brought up, high dose vitamin C because my husband had heard that from somebody. If you get a cancer diagnosis, she's like, yeah, that could work, or it could feed your cancer depending on, again, what caused it and what type of treatment plan is going to work best for you. Nothing is one size fits all. And unfortunately, I think that's why alternative medicine and treatments get a bad rep, is because we're not working with someone like Katrina to help us get a customized treatment plan. So there is no magic bullet for all cancers, everyone's lifestyle, your genetics, everything, your cancer diagnosis is different. But the bottom line here is to really take back control and customize your approach to hopefully, God willing, prevent a cancer diagnosis for yourself or treat it if you find yourself on that journey. Test, don't guess, like Katrina said, and advocate for yourself wherever you're at on your journey. I know this episode is a little different for us, but I know there is a heart listening out there that this has really spoke to, and I hope that's you, my dear friend. Make sure to go to the link in the show notes if you want to connect with Katrina, and thank you so much for listening. I am always rooting for you, and I'll catch you in the next episode. I am so proud of you for listening to another episode of Habit Hack Your Health. I don't want you to just feel inspired, but I want you to go take action. To help you do that, go grab a free 7-day trial inside of the Training for Life app. This is habit-based fitness programming that you won't find anywhere else. A full fitness library with workouts programmed around what we need as midlife moms, and habit trainings and accountability community to help you stay consistent no matter what season of life that you're in. Go to trainingforlifeapp.com to start your free 7-day trial, and let's start training for life together. I'm so rooting for you, girl. I'll see you in the next episode.